You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
We have a great learning opportunity to share with you today. We are chatting with our friends from Concordia Seminary today about a wonderful symposium coming up in the near future. Today we have with us Erika Bennett. She's Director of Continuing Education at Concordia Seminary. Erika, welcome to The Coffee Hour.
Thank you. Good morning.
I should say welcome back to The Coffee Hour because when we've chatted in the past, it's usually about a different learning event. In the past, we've chatted about the Faith and Film Festival. Today, we're talking about a learning opportunity as well, the Multiethnic Symposium at Concordia Seminary. We'll dig into that, what that means, what is a multi-ethnic symposium in just a moment. Let's talk about continuing education at Concordia Seminary. Who is continuing education for at Concordia Seminary?
Sure. Thank you, Andy. Right now, it's for our Lutheran Church Missouri Synod pastors. We are working to make it available for non-clergy church workers. What I kind of tell people, because they're like, "Oh, can we come to this event? I'm a deaconess, or I'm a school teacher or whatever," and I'm like, "Please come." And right now, they can still fill out the CEU verification form and submit it. I just don't know, if it's being accepted yet, but definitely our rostered pastors.
What are some of the past opportunities for continuing ed? What are some of the past and ongoing opportunities for continuing ed?
So our biggest two are Theological Symposium, which is always the third week in September. And that usually we get close to 400 people. It's one of the only continuing education events besides the Multiethnic Symposium that our students are able to attend. We actually don't have class on those 2 days so that they can come and, learn alongside church workers and church leaders out in the field. So it's a really good opportunity for them. So Theological Symposium is the big one. It's been going on for over 30 years, and pastors have always been able to get continuing education for it. Multi-Ethnic Symposium. Now our Faith and Film Festival that Andy, you mentioned, we've spoken before on this coffee hour. And then in addition to that, we have workshops and conferences throughout the year. Our biggest are coming up, our Prof Insights faculty-led workshops that we do May through August every summer. And continuing education units are included in the workshop registration. But then we also have, other opportunities throughout the year. But the big thing that we're trying to increase awareness is we're starting to work with some other organizations in our church body. When organizations like Lutheran Hour Ministries or Grace Place Ministries, or Ambassadors for Reconciliation, when they do their own workshops, they are starting to put their participants in communication with my office at Concordia Seminary. And as long as we have an agenda and can calculate how many hours it's worth, we are able to offer continuing education units for workshops that we don't necessarily sponsor, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Those are such great opportunities for roster church workers and for pastors to get all of these great insights and topics and always very interesting things. So that is wonderful opportunities. So we're here to talk about today specifically about the Multiethnic Symposium. Always a very interesting lineup of topics and things to talk about. What are some of the past multi-ethnic symposiums? What have the topics been in the past for this one?
Sure. So as people probably already know or realize, we weren't able to have one last year in person because of the pandemic. So we just canceled it. And so we decided we'd, start it up again this year. But as far as past years go, in 2019, we actually had a really interesting theme that I learned a lot on the topic of shame and honor in different cultures. So that was really interesting. Before that, we've done a lot of themes on just affirming a multi-ethnic church. What is a truly multicultural church, and how can our church body get to there? And then back in 2017, we, like everyone else, got on the Reformation 500 bandwagon and did a Reformation Among Borders, which was really interesting. But prior to that, we've done mostly kind of a universal theme of hope. And every year from when we started it back in 2008 through 2014, it's always been some variation of a theme on hope.
So what is the aim or the overall purpose of Multiethnic Symposium that we're aiming for this year?
Sure. Really, every year it's to bring together missional leaders, pastors, congregation leaders, theologians, and others across our church body, like I said, to really explore what it takes to become a truly multi-ethnic church that, really embodies a more fully Catholic, universal, global identity, especially here in the United States. So this year, just to jump right in, we are specifically, so we all know the phrase, the West and the rest. So this year we've flipped it, and our theme is the rest and the West. And so it's what the West can learn from global South Christianity. So we're going to be bringing together, like I said, the different groups of people to really talk about how the global South has contributed to our way of thinking and practices in such topics as preaching, worship and the arts, evangelism, and even social engagement. So it's going to have a little bit for everybody.
Can you dig into a little bit more to those topics? It sounds very, very interesting.
So sure, we I didn't pull that information up specifically, but I can tell you who some of the presenters are. We're very excited because we have as our keynote this year Philip Jenkins, the world-renowned distinguished professor of history in the Institute for Studies of Religion from Baylor University. So he's a big name draw. We really wish we could have done it in person on our campus, but it's still going to be great from that respect. We also have Dr. Vince Bantu from Fuller Theological Seminary. He is a professor in church history and Black church studies. We have Samuel Duressa from our own Concordia University up in St. Paul, Minnesota. He's a professor of theology and the Global South. So I'm really interested to hear what he's going to say. And then our last main speaker is a part of our, he's speaking as the lecturer of our 15th annual lecture in Hispanic Latino theology and missions. We always would do that at a different time of the year, but over the last several years, we've just had it be a part of the Multiethnic Symposium, And his name is Dr. Marcel Stilva Sternagel, and he is at Southern Methodist University, professor in church music and sacred music program there. So that'll be great. And then some of our various sectional speakers will include some of our very own faculty. People are familiar with the names Will Schumacher, Abjar Baku, Joel Lowski, and Ben Haupt. We have a full lineup. It's going to be May 4th and 5th. Going back to our keynote, Philip Jenkins, he's going to be talking on about migrations and the new global Christianity. Vince Bantu from Fuller is going to be talking on Does God See Color? Gospel and Culture in a Historical Perspective. We have, of course, our gentleman from Southern Methodist University is going to speak on his expertise on lessons that we can learn from the Global South pertaining to worship. A couple of the sectional speakers, some people on this that listen to this program are probably familiar with Hector Hopi, who was the editorial director over at Concordia Publishing House for years. He's retired now, but I got to speak to him on his presentation, so I know it really well. But his title is, Can Anything Good Come Out of the South? and just a really interesting spin on how, we can learn, how the United States can learn from our fellow Christian brothers and sisters down in the South. We also have one of our own international students, Wanda Mugame, is going to be speaking on the influences from Africa. And when I spoke with him, he said, there were representatives from Africa during the first Pentecost. And that was really interesting to think about, and how for so many years we would send missionaries to Africa. And now there is such a huge expansion of Christianity in Africa that now Africa is starting to have missionaries to proclaim the gospel elsewhere. So just some really interesting things that I, as a Caucasian layperson living in the United States my whole life, it's going to be great. Like I said, there's going to be a little bit of something for everyone.
How will participants participate this year? You mentioned last year with all everything changing, we weren't able to have the symposium last year. How will participants participate this year?
Sure. So this is going to be our first ever fully virtual multi-ethnic symposium. Like you mentioned, last year we did cancel it, and we decided we did not want to cancel it again. But there's still a lot of people that just, for one reason or another, either they're not vaccinated or they don't feel comfortable, being in large groups of people. So we were like, how can we do this? So we have been working for several months now with our web team and our IT department. They have worked so hard on all the details. And so what we've done is we've created a website for participants to access all the sessions. And we also will be sending later this month a detailed participation instruction guide. But I really feel like my coworkers have not missed a detail. And I am truly confident that we're going to be able to pull off such a large event completely virtual.
So how do we find out how to register? How do we find all that information?
Yep, sure. So people will just go to our website, csl.edu. And if you go under one of our top categories is resources, and then continuing education. Under that, Multiethnic Symposium has its own category. And registration is super easy. It's only $35 this year to attend, since we won't be able to feed people. So we were able to cut the cost a little bit. But what people will do when they go to that registration page, they'll need to select their sessions at registration. So they'll have the opportunity to see the whole lineup of speakers with titles and descriptions. And then after registration, every person, after they've registered, every person is going to receive a personalized digital pass email from us that will include the symposium schedule with Zoom links for all the sessions. So when people get that, they want to make sure that their personalized schedule is correct with all the sessions that they signed up for. And if they have any questions, they can email me. But I think it's going to be really slick. We've got some great systems in place that work really well with Zoom, which we're all really familiar with these days.
Everyone's a Zoom expert these days. Very good. So we can we can get all the registration information again at the CSL website, correct?
Correct.
All right, yes. csl.edu. And we'll share that in the program notes as well today. Anything else about the upcoming Multi-Ethnic Symposium that you want to share today?
As I mentioned, it's the first time we're doing it fully virtual. People will select their sessions in advance, which people always do that, even when we do in-person ones. But what is different this time is all of the presentations were pre-recorded. So that's a huge difference. But what is a great aspect of this year is that we will have live Q&A, about 20 minutes for every session. So after people, get onto the virtual event space and go to their Zoom sessions, they'll watch and listen to the presentation, and then right away they will be put into the live Q&A space. And that is going to be awesome. It's going to have the presenter in it. It's also going to have a faculty or staff facilitator that is working ahead of time with the presenter to come up with questions and just kind of help lead the discussion. And then there's also every live Q&A session will have tech support on hand, just in case, some of us aren't as tech savvy as we'd like to be. So, like I said, it's gonna run really smoothly. We even have a live panel discussion during the event with leaders across the country from our organization Link. And that's going to be really cool also. So their whole session is going to be a Q&A panel discussion. So they'll have a little bit of pre-recorded beforehand for participants to listen to, but then they've got, I think, 4 different people from across the country that will be speaking and answering questions.
Very good. And lastly, who do you think would benefit from participating this year in the Multiethnic Symposium?
Sure. Really anyone that's involved in ethnic ministry, either presently or plans to be. As I mentioned, our students don't have class on these 2 days. So if they're interested in their future calls or wherever they might end up to get involved in ethnic ministry, this is just a great opportunity, 2 days worth full of listening to speakers and asking questions and having some live discussion. So we're encouraging our students, of course, to participate virtually as well. But yeah, anyone that has any interest or love of ethnic ministry or wants to find out more about it, it's open to everyone.
Very good. And can you give us that website one more time?
Absolutely. It's csl.edu/resources/continuing education, and then multi-ethnic symposium.
Very good. Our guest today, Erika Bennett, Director of Continuing Education at Concordia Seminary. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today.
You're welcome.